Hello and welcome to the Inclusion Effect. I'm Anna and I'm here to talk with guests and with you all about disability advocacy, inclusion, and the ups and downs of navigating a world that frankly isn't built for the disability community. Today, I have part 2 of my conversation with Tiffany. If you remember from the first episode, Tiffany is the mom of twins born with Down syndrome, one who was born with leukemia and sadly did not make it out of the NICU. So in the first episode, we talked about her journey with pregnancy and with the NICU stay. Today, we're going to finish that conversation by talking about getting out of the NICU, going back to the PICU, and how her and I met and how she continues to advocate as an amazing, passionate, hardworking mom and a corporate girl boss girly. She's doing it all. I just adore her. If you pay attention on social media, this last week I was in Georgia at the Down Syndrome Diagnosis Network Moms Retreat event. I go to it every year. It is so much fun, and Tiffany is my roommate. We did share beds. She does snore. That's okay though. I just adore her, so I'm so glad I got to see her in person. She's all the way over in Florida and I'm in Oregon. We're on opposite sides of the world, but this community has brought us together, and she is just one of my best friends. So please enjoy this second.
And so we went home and eventually, and then that was in May, and then in July she ended up getting another respiratory virus and ended up going back to the hospital, but this time we were not in the NICU. Okay, so turns out being in the NICU had us super spoiled because they have like 2 to 3 babies per nurse, and they're right there, and they literally sit there right outside it. They have windows and they look at them and they are like on top of it. So I felt very comfortable going to the Ronald McDonald House across the street. Well, we go to the PICU now. Well, the PICU's a whole new ballgame, okay? Mind you, she is now like 6 months, but she's really like 2 months past her due date because her due date was in May. So really, she's like a 2-month-old on oxygen, now having a respiratory issue, right? So we go back. She has to get life flighted because she's just not like, she was not breathing well and all the rest of this. And when we're in the PICU, it was like night and day, and I was so upset. Like they had a monitor on her. Okay, the monitor in the NICU, like they really pay attention. You have this, they come in, they check it, whatever. In the PICU, and mind you, and probably every other like floor of the hospital. This is like, I'm sorry, this wasn't the PICU. This was she didn't go to the PICU yet. This was the pediatric floor, like the
Totally
regular
different.
pediatric
Yes.
floor,
Yeah.
which is even worse. Like it's one of those. So any like regular floors, you get like, so it was like one nurse per like, I don't know, 10 children or something like that. They're like way over in another section, and all they're doing is looking at your monitor. And I'm like, so her monitor is going off and she's not breathing, and I'm like freaking out, and I'm like calling them like, does anybody work here? And they're like, oh, well, like her monitor's just not like showing that it's reading. And I was like, she's a baby, she can't breathe, and you're wondering if her monitor is working? Like, are you kidding me? Like, come check on her. Like, what is going on here? Like, I was so mad. And so anyways, and so I was complaining about it, and I get on our little mommy blogs, and I'm like, I can't believe this is what's going on, whatever, this and that, right? And I'm like, it's this hospital. Oh no. Turns out, like anywhere in a pediatric floor, this is exactly how everybody gets treated. So if you ever go into the hospital, like, so my main focus to this one would be hospital advocacy and knowing what to do when you're there.
You have to
so
speak
this
up for
is
your
what
kid.
it is.
Yes.
Oh my God, 1000%. So it's,
Yes.
but also knowing what to expect and how to push them and what to ask for is a huge thing,
Yes.
right? So at this point, since she's on oxygen, she has a pulmonologist, she has a cardiologist, they're all connected to the same hospital, which is the hospital she got life flighted to, right? So it's one of those things where it was just like, like you cannot leave your child alone. Like you just can't, because they are not, or baby, your baby. So the way that the like pediatric floors and like the PICUs are like set up, I mean, as much as I'm sure they want to be better, they're set up for children that can call you, like, you know, like like go to the bathroom and like do things for themselves. Okay. So like having a baby, like they didn't even have like a milk warmer in the floor. And I was like, are you kidding? So So we ended up coming very prepared. We ended up buying like a portable refrigerator so that I could like put my breast milk in, and like we brought a warmer, like all these things that, well, not the first time. Well, it's just one of those things where I was like, what do you mean you don't have any of these things?
You
And I'm
learn
like
as you
complaining
go.
about it, and you're
Yeah.
just like, what? Right.
Yep.
So she was in there for like a week. And at that point in time, I was like, what are you people doing that we can't do at home? Like, send me home with all this
Yeah.
stuff, because I could do all this at home. Like, because she was only on like a certain amount of oxygen that we were able to do at home, and we were doing all these things, and I was still off on bereavement leave or whatever. I had another, oh no, actually, I ended up getting, so I had 12 weeks for maternity leave, and then I was supposed to go back to work, and that was right around the same time that the RT tried to kill my child, and I had like a complete meltdown, and I had a mentor like literally tell me, I was like, I can't come back to work. I'm probably just going to leave the company. I don't know what to do. And he goes, oh, absolutely not. I work for a big corporate company. And he goes, oh, absolutely not. He was like, you need to go to your OB or your doctor or your therapist. Oh, at this point in time, I was pushed into therapy too, by the way. I almost gave myself preeclampsia after I had the babies, because apparently that's a thing you can do up to 6 weeks after you have babies. I was in stroke level, and they made me go see a therapist and take some medication. If not, they were going to put me in the hospital, and I was not going to be able to see my baby in the NICU. So I was pushed into it, but very happy that it happened, because I ended up going through therapy the entire time my baby was in the NICU. By the way, I highly recommend. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, highly recommend.
Agreed. It helped me work through all of my medical PTSD. I mean, I still,
my God,
I still get triggered. You and I have talked about this before too, but yeah, I still have the PTSD. Don't get me wrong, but talking with somebody, especially when it means that you're gonna be a better mom for your kids, I cannot recommend enough.
Oh, absolutely, yes. But very specifically, somebody who deals with, I mean, I had to do grief because
yours was different than mine.
Was really what it was for.
Yes.
But very specifically, somebody who deals with PTSD.
Yes.
Like,
Agreed.
And that is because just regular counseling is not the same.
Nope.
It helped me identify the triggers and then figure out what to do to get me through them. Yeah. And that was super important. So, so it was just one of those things. Like, I was seeing my therapist, and he was like, he goes, go tell your therapist or your doctor that like all the things you don't want to admit to. And he was like, because if you admit all these things to them, they're going to tell you can't go back to work, and then we'll be forced to not like allow you to work, and then you can get paid on another short-term disability. Right. Yep. And then I got paid on another short-term disability for my PTSD, my anxiety, my depression that I like absolutely needed, because I was absolutely not okay to do my job at that point in time. And that's what he told me. He was like, you are not okay. And it's okay to not be okay, because nobody in your situation would be okay. You need to take another couple of months and like figure out how to work through this and continue to go to see your therapist and all the things. And I did, and it was great. Yeah. So at this point, right. So it was just one of those things where I highly recommend that. Also, by the way, if you're going through any of this and you actually do have short-term disability and have a chance to get paid, if you admit these things to all the things that you are not okay to your OB or therapist,
be honest.
Like that form where it says, are you okay to go back to work? Do not put down what you think they want to hear so you can go back to work. Put down what is really going on, and they will pay you to stay home and feel better.
Tell the truth so you can take care of yourself, so you can take care of your kids. Yes.
I'm just saying. So just FYI, I had no idea that was a thing. It is a thing. Please take advantage
Utilize
of it.
It's there. Yes.
Yes. So, So the first year that Catherine was here, she ended up going back to the hospital on her first birthday. Talk about traumatizing. I had to go back to the same hospital.
Oh, this is when you and I started talking.
Actually, we started talking in the middle because Addie had her thing.
Because Addie had her cardiac arrest and all that.
Mm-hmm. In October, was it?
Yeah. Well, it started in October. She got out in January.
Right. So this time period was, so it was after my NICU stay and after my first time back. And so since Catherine had the heart, she still has a hole in her heart. And so it was
So did
one of those
I.
things, like I was a part of the heart group. And when you were in the birth group talking about all of this stuff, and I was like,
Yes.
oh, okay. The birth group, I'm as much as I love the birth group, they're fabulous, but most of them are just like talking about milestones and like that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And it was just, I was like, oh, Anna, you need to go talk to the heart group. You need to talk to these other groups because they get where you are. Like, I
Yes.
get you. We're here. Like, I'm all about helping you, but I can't, I don't, because you're like, I
And
have no idea why she had a heart
yes.
attack. And I'm like,
And I haven't
go
talked
talk to
exactly
them.
about what happened to Addie on this podcast yet, although I talk about it all the time on social media. I will have an episode dedicated just to it at some point. But what Tiffany and what me and my family have been through is not the norm for babies with Down
No,
syndrome.
not at all.
We had very extreme cases. Yeah, I can't stress this enough. I know lots of kids with Down syndrome who like barely see the hospital their first year of life. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Like the whole birth group that I'm talking
Yes.
about. I was like, the whole birth
Yes.
group here,
The
which
things
is
that
like,
happened to
50 to
us were
100 people.
very extreme.
Very
Like they
rare.
were outliers. Like that is not the norm. I don't want people to hear us talk about these things and be like, "Oh my god, having a baby with Down syndrome is traumatizing." It can be,
Mhm.
but having any baby can be traumatizing.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Totally.
we had both of us in very different ways and not comparable at all. You know, we both had our own journeys, but we kind of bonded over that because we both had very extreme things happen to our kids. Yes.
Yes. So yeah, just so to go back, like the other two, so she went back two other times. One of the times was during her actual birthday, and so she was
Yes.
NPO. She had another virus. It was a human metapneumovirus, which apparently is a sister to RSV,
Mm-hmm.
and she ended up in the PICU. And that was the time in which I like everything clicked. Like this hospital journey is when it clicked. It was one of those things where I was like, um like at this point in time I was also surprise pregnant with another baby,
Ah!
so I was like 20 weeks pregnant when she went into the hospital the
When
second
Tiffany
time.
posted on social media that she had a baby, she didn't tell anybody, you guys. I was talking to her on Facebook Messenger all the time, and we had no idea. And she was just like, "Surprise! I'm a celebrity. I kept this a secret. Here's my baby." It was amazing. I screamed then. I just screamed now. It was such a good surprise.
Oh my God. Well, I was so in denial. I had so much trauma when it came to
Of
like just
course.
even being
And
pregnant
how
that
far apart are
like,
they again?
and they are 15 months
Yes.
apart,
Okay, so the exact same as
real
Liam and Addie.
time,
Yes.
real time, except for like their due date, like her due date is like 12 months apart from like when I had my another one. So
Right.
they are, they're, oh my goodness. So yeah, and I had so much depression and everything about like missing out on this whole twin experience and all
Yeah.
this stuff. And like, I did want to have another baby, but I was not like in the state of mind to be like, we're going to have one, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
okay. I was not okay. But it happened. I mean, it was, my Jacqueline is like the best thing that ever happened to me. But so at this point, when she was in the hospital, I was like halfway through my pregnancy and I couldn't stay in the hospital because they have very uncomfortable beds.
Yeah.
And I had to prioritize my new baby.
Yeah.
And my husband was very willing to stay there at night. So it wasn't like it was me or nobody. My husband was willing to do it. So he took the night shift. So I would sleep at the Ronald McDonald House. And then we went over there. I would go over there during the day and talk to all the doctors. And so we did all of that. But the hospital floor, like, was not, or the pediatric floor was not okay for her. So the first time we left the hospital, we had one RT or respiratory therapist tell us that her baseline when she is on high flow, instead of 21% like everybody else, her baseline was 35%. And she was like, whatever you do, anytime they do high flow, do not let them go below 35%. So her and the pulmonologist told us this. So this was key for us, and I believe it was all due to her pulmonary hypertension. And so it was one of those things where, like, when she went back the next time, they were just like, oh, because the way that they work, they're like, it's one of those things where they're like, oh, we have to get them down to 21% before we can lower this, and and I was like, that's not how my baby works. And they're like, but that's not how the machines work. I'm like, listen, if my baby was a textbook baby, we wouldn't be here. I would love for her to be a textbook baby, but she's not.
But
Okay, so textbook babies are like, what, 80, 90%? Well, whatever it is, she's the other thing. Like,
yeah.
like I would love for her not to be, right? So it was one of those things. So I had to like fight tooth and nail, like, this is what we're doing. This time too was also the time in which, like, the hospital floor was like, she got to like 50% oxygen on the high flow. And the hospital floor was like, well, if she's at 50% oxygen, like, we can't treat her. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? Like, do we go to the PICU? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. But we're still on the floor. So like 24 hours later, we're still on the floor. And I'm like, what is going on? So I was like, I don't understand. So then I like threw a fit. So she gets transferred to the NICU, right? Or PICU.
PICU, yeah.
And so we're in the PICU, which is the pediatric ICU. And I see another doctor. So I go through this whole thing with him, tell him everything that's going on. And then he goes, oh, it turns out it was one of the little newbie doctors that just graduated. And he was like, oh, well, since she's at 50% oxygen, we can't treat her. And I lost my ever living mind, because I was like, if you aren't treating her, who is treating her? I don't understand. Like, I legitimately cannot understand. I was like, so I leave. Okay, so this whole thing happens. This is a Saturday and a Sunday, okay? Like I said, weekends, right? And so I leave, and by the time Monday morning comes around, like, I could barely sleep. I slept like 2 or 3 hours or something. I wake up and write this email to the pulmonologist, and I just went off. I was like, I don't understand. They're not listening to me. They're like doing this, they're doing that. They're not treating her. If they're not treating her, then who is treating her? Who is her doctor? Right. What is going on? Why are we even in the hospital? Like, what are you people doing? Like, whole thing, right? So usually the pulmonologist, when you're in the hospital, will come see you on like a lunch break or lunch-ish time, because they have, they have to fit in their regular scheduled appointments, right? Well, I get in while it's still the night nurse, which means it's before 7 a.m. So it's like probably 5 a.m. by the time I got there, right? And I go to the night nurse and I say, don't let none of these doctors are allowed to come in here. Don't let them in her room. She's not allowed unless they are assigned to her, and they don't say the words, I can't treat her because she's at 50% FiO2, right? And so she was like, okay, they're not going to come in until the next shift, but I will pass that along, right? So then I hear, and I don't know if it was like 6:30 or 7 o'clock, I can't remember, but it was like way early in the morning, and I hear the pulmonologist, and she is outside the room screaming at these doctors, like all the newbie doctors, and she is just yelling at them, and she was just like, how dare you, all this, because I wrote her this like scathing thing. Thank God she was like reading her stuff like first thing in the morning. So she came in before any of her scheduled appointments to just yell at them. And so she brought all of them, and she actually asked me very nicely, because I told them none of them were allowed to come in. She came in and was like, can I invite them in so that they can learn a lesson? I said, absolutely. So she came in, and she also brought the floor doctor from the pediatric floor and everything. Oh, wow. And I don't believe the PICU doctor was there, but the floor doctor was in charge of all of the little newbie doctors that I was having to deal with, right? And so, because all the little newbie doctors, they just graduated, and all they know are the things that they read in a textbook. Like, that's great, but also not helpful, right?
Not for my child.
I know more about pulmonary hypertension than you do. Not okay. Go figure it out. Like, read her chart and go figure out what it means, right? So she comes in and she's like telling me all about this. I am so upset because I am pregnant, and I'm upset, and I have all the emotions. I couldn't talk. Like, I was crying. I couldn't talk. So my husband actually like goes through this whole thing. It's like the pulmonologist was like, I don't think I've ever heard you talk that much. It's been years since we've seen her, right? And he was just like, well, usually I just let my wife handle it.
Yes.
But she is so upset that she can't talk right now.
Which doesn't happen often.
So, like, Right, exactly. So it's just one of those things where it was like, and she went through everything and was like, I was like, look, like, I just need to know that she's getting taken care of and everything. And, and she was just one of those things like, so they apologized, and I was like, don't ever say those type of things to a parent. Like,
Anybody.
it's
Yeah.
not okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that's your hospital policy, work it out before you come and see me, right?
Hmm.
And so then they ended up seeing, or so then the doctor, the PICU doctor, the PICU doctor ended up being her doctor because he had to,
Oh.
and he came in and apologized and everything, and he was just like, I'm so sorry, like, this is a, and I got the floor doctor to apologize too, and they're like, those are hospital policies, like, that's not something that we should have ever said
Yeah.
to a parent.
We
And I'm
need to
like,
know that
yes,
they can
that,
take care of our kids. Telling us that they don't know or they can't treat things, unless they're saying, "Hey, we don't know and we're going to figure it out," is
right,
terrifying. Like,
right.
that's our
That
children's
is
lives.
exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And at this point in time, too, she had like pulled out her IV, and they were like, they had already tried to poke her like 20 times. And my husband, who is like the sweetest person in the world, put his foot down and was like, nobody's touching her. And so we're like, and they're like, oh, well, we have somebody with an ultrasound. And I was like, nope, we don't care, because an ER doc tried with an ultrasound and couldn't do it. And like, oh my
Hmm.
God, did a terrible job. Anyways, but turns out you need the actual people who know how to use the ultrasound. Just
Yep.
because they have one
Our
doesn't mean
kids
that they know how to use
are
it.
notoriously hard pokes. Addie also has
So
been through this.
she, so we got the people who place the pick lines in the teeny tiny babies in the NICU to come over and do it. So they found it first try, la da da, and she put a note in there that said nobody else can touch her except for me, right?
Hmm.
And so she ended up getting better, and we got out and everything, and then she needed to have a heart cath. And when she had her heart cath, she was fine. We had to go to Gainesville for that. That's about a 4 or 5 hour drive. And so we stayed there overnight to make sure everything was okay. And then we came back, and she started having issues. Like, she had it on a Wednesday. They kept her in the hospital till Thursday. Friday, we went home. And then by the time Sunday rolled around, she had to go to the hospital again, and then by Monday she had to be intubated. And we were all like, this has to be related. There is no
Yeah.
way that this is not related. And of course the heart doctor's like, everything went fine. We kept her overnight. Like, it can't be related. And I'm
Yeah.
like, there is no way that this is not related, right? So I'm just sitting here thinking, so it's one of those things where she was on a ventilator. She was never on a ventilator. When she was born at 2 pounds, she wasn't even on a ventilator
Yeah.
when she was at 2 pounds. Elizabeth was immediately on a ventilator, but Catherine was never on a ventilator. She was just on high flow.
Yeah.
Well, she had, so she was there for like a week. And I'm like, at this point, I think I was like 26 weeks pregnant. I'm having like, I'm just praying that this baby stays in, because I'm like, the last thing I need is to be like, have another baby in the NICU while this one's in the PICU, and like, what do I
Right.
do if I'm put into the hospital? Like, all these things going on, right? So then and one of the PICU doctors at this point in time is the one who like totally saved her life, which, oh, by the way, if you want to know anything about pneumonia, let me know, because each time she was in the hospital, that was why she was there, was pneumonia. Okay, everybody thinks that pneumonia is simple. Okay, like you have a virus or a bacteria. I'm sorry. So pneumonia is bacteria in the lung. So if you have a bacteria in the lung, you just do antibiotics and simple, it clears up. Correct? Right? No, wrong. Okay. So here's where we got the wrong part on that. Turns out that with pneumonia, there are like hundreds of different types of bacteria that can cause it. And when they say broad spectrum, quote unquote, broad spectrum antibiotics, it means that it treats like 20 of them. Mind you, it's like the top 20 that are most
The most
typical,
common.
right? But if it's not the right antibiotic for that particular bacteria, it's not going to help you, right? So she's there for a week, not getting any better, not getting any worse, but not getting any better.
Yeah.
And one of the PICU doctors goes, I want to do a bronchoscopy, which means she's already intubated, so it's not that obtrusive because she's already intubated. So we're going to use the same tube that's down her throat and do a scope and scrape the bottom of her lungs and then test it. So they can do a pneumonia panel, but only with a bronchoscope because they had to get into her lungs to scrape the bottom and then test it, because your lungs are like self-contained, and they don't, like, if you have a pneumonia or a bacteria in your lungs, they only can test it if they do a bronchoscope, like down through your or if you cough up crap, right? That's how they test it. Yeah. Right. But or they could suction it out, but like they can only suction so much, like, and she's teeny tiny. She's not coughing anything up. She's, low body muscle tone, all this stuff. Right. And so they did it, right? And they find 3 different types of bacteria. Well, one of the PICU doctors is like, if I'm betting, none of those are going to grow, right? Comes back, all 3 of them grew. So what happened this is the theory, of course, is that when she had the heart cath and they intubated her for the heart catheter, that the tube that went down her lungs stirred up the old pneumonia that was never actually healed from the other 3 times she was in the hospital. And all 3 of them activated again and caused pneumonia in her lungs.
That is so crazy.
And so they kept saying her x-rays didn't look like pneumonia, because it was a full-blown pneumonia caused by a virus, but it kept acting like pneumonia. And so it wasn't until they got the bronchoscopy back, and then they were able to the bacteria pneumonia panel back, and they found 3 different types of pneumonia. 2 of them were very uncommon. So the antibiotic they were giving her was only treating one and not the other, hence the reason why she was on the ventilator. So they found one antibiotic that could treat all 3. She started recovering almost immediately. So essentially the whole reason why she was in the hospital any of the other times was all because of pneumonia, but they were just treating it for a common type of pneumonia, which by the way, this can happen to literally anyone, adults included, adults, typical, anybody. This is not Down syndrome related. This is just what happened to my baby. So they treated her. They had all these things. She was great. She, they had to wean her off of the drugs that kept her sedated for being under and all the rest of that fun stuff. So she was there for like 6 weeks. And after that, she has not been back to the hospital. So
woo! Yeah,
she's still been on oxygen.
She's still on oxygen now, right?
No, actually, she just graduated. So
I know that? You probably said
sure.
it.
I don't know if I've talked about it too much.
Even overnight, she's not on oxygen anymore?
No, she is on oxygen at night. So she also has sleep apnea, but she came home on oxygen, and at this point in time, I had another freak out, right? And I was like, and I'm about to have a baby. Another baby, and then I'm like, I can't even pick her up after I have the baby, and I'm like, what do I do? So the hospital helped me get a home health care nurse to come help take care of Catherine while I had my new baby, and then we were able to keep her on because she was on oxygen and all this stuff, and so that helped me so much, and her insurance paid for it, and like my healthcare care manager was like, oh yeah, because I was like, I just need somebody to do it once or twice a week, right? So I can breathe. And she was like, well, what do you need it for work? And I'm like, I need it for 5 days a week. And she was like, okay, including what? So we had it 5 days a week, 7 to 7. It was amazing. It was amazing, right? And so that was when she was 1. And then I had Jacqueline, and then we had the home health care nurse for almost 2 years exactly, minus 2 weeks. And then they decided she had another sleep study. She still has sleep apnea, so she wears the oxygen at night, but they decided during the day she didn't need it.
That's awesome.
She started school at 3 because she is now 3.5. So
Oh,
the way, yeah, I know, the way early steps works is that, or how it works with your disability child is that if you are in early steps, then you immediately qualify for going to pre-K D. This is in the state of Florida. I don't know if it's everybody. Pre-K D and the day after you turn 3. So she turned 3 in January. She started the first week in February. And at the time, we still had the nurse. So the nurse went with her to school and took care of her. And so I felt a lot better about my teeny
right.
tiny baby going to school with somebody who had been with her for a year and a half. And it was really great. So she was able to be integrated into the classroom and she did all the things, although she was also using her nurse as a crutch. And she is super, super, super clever. Okay, so we're going to get into the fun parts of having like a Down syndrome child. And that is, my child is so clever and so
Ugh,
sassy and
Addie as
just like
well.
every other freaking
Gosh.
toddler. Oh my goodness. She is like all about it. And she knows. She was
Oh
like,
yeah.
she
Addie will
would,
do something sassy and then she'll just look at you. Little
I
side
know. Well,
eye.
she wouldn't walk from classroom to classroom, and
She'd
she
get
was walking
carried.
everywhere. And I was like, "Why are you not walking?" And they're like, "Well, we got her stroller." I'm like, "Why? She can walk.
She's
What
just
is
the
going on?"
cutest.
Because
Yes.
she would just sit down and be like, "Well, you could carry me." I'm like,
Ah!
right?
So
So she
funny.
was using her nurse. So she like the insurance decided they did a an analysis and decided that she didn't need to have her nurse anymore, even though she was still on oxygen. But we were given the okay to wean her in April or May. So we weaned her over the summer after we lost the nurse, and so during the day she is fine. We still have the school like monitor her. We have a monitor, and she like when she's napping and when she comes in and like they hook her up and look at
Yeah.
her oxygenation and make sure she doesn't need it. And so she's been doing good, and she just went back to school without her nurse, but she's in the same classroom with the same
Oh,
teachers who
good.
like understood her, and we ended up getting another assistant or the paraprofessional in the classroom. So
Hmm.
she doesn't have a one-on-one, and that's because we decided that might be a little too restrictive, kind of like her nurse. We didn't want her to use her as a
Right. Leaning
crutch,
on them.
but
Yeah.
they added one more to the classroom in order for her to
An extra
um
body.
yes, and she's primarily assigned to Catherine, but she helps with everybody else too.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not like she just does that, right?
That's similar to Addie's class. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, in the summer we got her swim lessons, and let me tell you, she is so smart and so stubborn. And this swim teacher, like I got Rosemary swim lessons with the same teacher because I got her from another parent with Down syndrome. And this was
Uh-huh.
my ultimate goal to begin with, was 3 years ago when I brought home a baby with oxygen. I needed to make sure that my 3-year-old, who was running around and nobody was paying attention to because I had a medically complex child, I wanted to make sure she didn't drown. So we needed her to know how to swim because we live in Florida
Right.
and water is everywhere.
Yeah,
And
you're
so
surrounded by water. You literally live in
I
like a
know,
vacation spot.
everybody has pools,
Yes.
everybody, like water is literally everywhere. Like
Mm-hmm.
Destin is basically an island. Anyway, so I was complaining about it to our new community of Down syndrome moms, and one of them goes, "Well, we have this wonderful coach in Fort Walton over here, Swim Life, by the way, highly recommend." And they taught the rescue swim lessons to her daughter with Down syndrome, who was 6, and she taught her the same amount of time that she teaches typical kiddos, which is like 5 weeks. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Well, if you could teach her that, you could teach my typical kid now, and then in like 2 or 3 years, you could teach my other child with Down syndrome." So this was my ultimate goal when
Mm-hmm.
I got her to teach Rosemary, was to make sure that she also taught Catherine. But of course, with my surprise baby, she taught both Catherine and Jacqueline together
She was
this
not going to be
summer.
missing out on
And
it.
nope, I needed both of them to learn because they run in opposite directions. I
Uh-huh.
mean, with Catherine having delays, I definitely got the twin experience because like all of the
They're
things,
doing the
like
same things at the same
they're doing the
time.
same things at the same time. And talk about clever, like clever Catherine. She knew how to crawl and do all the things and wouldn't do it until like her sister came along and decided she wanted to do it, right? So she knew how to roll over at like 8 months when like all the typical kids could, but she wouldn't do it. She did it. The physical therapist saw her do it, and then she wouldn't do it again for like 6 months. That was like December or November, and she wouldn't do it again until I was like 9 months pregnant, and I couldn't get down on the floor to catch her, and
Of
she
course.
rolled across the floor. And then her crawling, after that, they're like, we're going to put her in the crawling position. I had like 2 therapists like putting her in the crawling position for like 6 months. And then, like, the second Jacqueline got up on all fours and started rocking like she was going to crawl, Catherine decides to crawl across the room, pull to a stand, and start clapping 2 blocks together. And I'm like, seriously?
Of course.
Seriously?
Yep.
Oh my God. So she like knew how to do it. She just refused to. And I'm like, oh, bratty, brat.
Oh my
Same thing with walking. She like the second Jacqueline thought she was gonna start walking, she was like, I'm gonna walk before you do. Like, and takes off across the room. And I'm like,
oh, these
so
kids.
my new baby was like the best thing that ever happened to my child with Down syndrome. So I highly recommend, if you do get a chance, have another baby so that
We're thinking about it.
Your Down syndrome child understands that like they have competition and they need, or maybe it's just my child who loves the competition. I don't know. Some of the Down syndrome babies.
Well, you know what? I really think a lot of the reason that Addie's so good at her gross motor skills specifically is because she has a brother who's 15 months older than her. Like, they're in the same preschool class. They're very close in age and stuff, where their birthdays fall. And I think that the reason why she's so good at the big stuff, like climbing, running, jumping, whatever, dancing, is the same reason. She wants to keep up with her sibling that's close in age. I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I really do.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. And like I said, that was the best. Yeah. So she is not quite talking yet, but we are working on that. So, and the way that it is,
you know.
And it's one of those things, like the therapists were telling me, like the thing that she excelled the most at is really her physical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they have developmental delays, they were talking about, or the therapist told me that like usually they'll excel in one before they pick up the other. And so they're like, she's excelling in the physical therapy and not necessarily the other things, and she can pick it up. So she doesn't sign either, which makes me very frustrated, but she communicates. She will bring your hand to the door. She will bring the remote. Like, she's super clever. Like, I hide the remote, and she goes around and looks for the remote and finds it like 90% of the time. Yes. I'm like, girlfriend, really? Because I'm watching something she doesn't want to watch, or watching something her sisters want to watch and she doesn't want to watch it. She finds it. I'm like, girl.
They're going to get it done one way or another. Oh my gosh. Okay, Tiffany, I know you and I can yap all day. I have to go pick up my oldest from school in 25 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to ask you one last question and then we'll wrap things up. But I'm going to have you and I need to do another episode because I have so many more questions and I'm so excited I get to see you next week in person. If everybody couldn't tell, we can yap forever. So the last question is, what is the most important thing that you've learned from your journey?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Honestly, through all of this, it's really being humble about other people's situation. Like, after I lost my child, I figured out that loss is grief is a completely different language, and silence can hurt too. Like, and it's not just with loss, but also like disability. Like, being silent about it is way worse than like asking the wrong questions. Saying stuff like, I'm not sure what to ask or how to act, is okay. To be like, I'm not sure what to do. Tell me how. And so, and being, after lots of therapy too, it was one of those things where I learned that I need to be the one directing the conversation too, where I'm like, it's okay that you don't know what to say. Like, it's okay that, like saying my daughter's name who passed away makes me happy, because everybody thinks when you lose a child that you're like, I don't want to say their names because it'll remind them. Let me tell you, we are 100% aware of the fact that my child is not with us. You mentioning their name doesn't remind me of their death. It makes me understand that you remember their life, and their life was important, not the other way around. And that was just, and the same thing with my daughter that's here. Like, half the time I don't even talk about her Down syndrome, just because to me she's the same as all of my other kids. I mean, it's she just needs some extra tutoring. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it. And I mean, I know we went through all this like hospital, all this stuff, but I mean, literally it can happen to any
It
child.
can.
It is not like exclusive to Down syndrome. I mean, the NICU, I made two friends with other moms that had 26 weaker kids, and they had all the same issues. I think the only reason why she went through any of that stuff was because she got that adenovirus
Mm-hmm.
while she was in the NICU, and they never quite got rid of the pneumonia, and it just made
Yeah.
her sicker and sicker and sicker until she was on the ventilator.
Until it was too
And
much for her.
I right, and it was one of those things where I just I've seen it happen to adults, like typical people, adults, where they have this stuff with pneumonia. So I'm like, oh, you have pneumonia? Let me tell you about it.
Yeah.
I know way too much about pneumonia.
Yes, I think that's a great point. You always, I will say, are so good about including Elizabeth in everything you do for Catherine. We see each other every year at the Down Syndrome Diagnosis Network's mom retreat. I forgot the word. The mom retreat. And we all have name badges with pictures of our kids, and you always have Elizabeth and Catherine on it. And you're such a great advocate. You always talk with the other twin moms, because there are a few moms that have twins, both with Down syndrome, and you do a great job of including Elizabeth in everything you do for Catherine, and I love that.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Well,
Sorry, I talked
oh my
forever,
gosh.
but
You're good. I could talk even longer. Okay, guys. So we'll talk again, Tiffany. If you've made it this far in the podcast, please follow, leave me 5 stars, and share this with a friend or two. Also follow along on social media. Tiffany does not do social media. We are opposites in that way. My TikToks are at The Inclusion Effect and at Uplife of Addie. I also have an Instagram that's The Inclusion Effect. I'm working on being better about keeping up with that. And thank you so much to everyone for listening and helping me build this community of passionate advocates. See you next time.
bye.